name is Mrs. Geisy, and today we're going to be discussing plagiarism, which is probably one of the most terrible words in all of academia, right? I know everybody's heard about plagiarism, but I think sometimes we get confused about what it actually is and how we're supposed to avoid it. Because sometimes people accidentally plagiarize. They don't realize that that's what they're doing. And as we know, you can get in a lot of trouble for plagiarizing. Here at the high school, you can actually get a 0 on the assignment and a trip to the office. But I've heard stories of college students who've actually been expelled for plagiarism. I heard a story recently, probably last year, about a group of, for cheating. It was a group of nursing students who cheated on an exam. They were expelled from med school, and then they couldn't come back. And they couldn't get into another school because people thought they were cheaters after that. So we definitely want to stay clear away from this kind of academic dishonesty. And it's important that you know what constitutes plagiarism and how do you avoid that. Now, according to Indiana University Tutorial Services, plagiarism is using others' ideas and words without clearly acknowledging the source of that information. Now, here's some examples. Now, everyone knows that copying work from a friend or copying information from a website instead of doing your own work is plagiarism. It's cheating. And we all know about that part, but there's some other ways of cheating and plagiarizing that you may not be aware of. Using information from a source, even if it's a research paper, if you don't cite that information with internal citations in a works cited page, even if it's a research paper, that counts as plagiarism because you're not citing that information. You have to use a works cited page and you have to use internal citations to tell us where that information came from, or it's actually plagiarism. Now, the third way is if you take information from a source and you change a few words or switch around the order of phrases from a source instead of putting it in your own words. And, that's not a good way of doing it. And we're going to talk about what you should do instead. And also, again, you have to cite that information. Even though you change the words, first of all, you got to change more than a couple words for it to be in your own words. And second of all, you've got to still cite the information. Even if it's in your own words, it's not your ideas. So you have to still cite that information and say where those ideas came from. And using the exact wording of a source without putting quotation marks around it in a research paper, that is also plagiarism. So let's look at some examples. This is from the Indiana University webpage. And this is where I got all my information, if you're wondering. And so here's me citing my source. I got it from this website, Indiana University, Bloomington. And here's some examples that they came up with. You can see in this example, it reads, "The rise of industry, the growth of cities, and the expansion of the population were the three great developments of late 19th century American history. As new, larger steam-powered factories became a feature of the American landscape in the East, they transformed farmhands into industrial laborers and provided jobs for a rising tide of immigrants. With industry came urbanization, the growth of large cities like Fall River, Massachusetts, where the Bordens lived, which became the centers of production as well as commerce and trade." So that's the original source. That's what was actually in the source that this person read. Now, here, this next part is an unacceptable use of the source. This is actually plagiarism. So this person, it says, the increase of industry, the growth of cities, and the explosion of the population were three large factors of 19th century America. You can tell that the first part of the sentence is actually directly from the source. These parts right here are directly from the source, so they just changed part of the wording. As steam-driven companies became more visible, you can see steam-powered factories. They just changed the factories to companies. You can't do this kind of thing, because if you just change some of the words, That's not really in your own words. That's just trying to kind of get around putting it in your own words. So what you want to do is you want to read the source, and then once you read the source, don't even look at it when you're writing yours. And you want to put it completely in your own words. Don't even look at the source. Once you get the main idea, write it, and then look back at the original and make sure that you didn't accidentally plagiarize. Make sure you're using your own wording. And then, at the end, cite it with your internal citations. And if you have any questions about how to do internal citations, you can look at my other videos here on CTC too. It says this passage is plagiarism because they only changed around a few words and phrases or changed the order, and then they also didn't cite their source. Now down here, you'll see this person completely rewrote and put it in their own words, and then after, they used an internal citation to say where that information came from. That's a correct use of the source. It would also be okay to quote from the source, but you want to stay away from quoting everything. You would still use the citation, but you don't want to quote every single thing, because if you quote every single thing, it just makes for a bad paper. It's just a quote strung together to make a paper, not actually using the information. Let's go back. Now, I would really want to encourage